There was an unspoken rule in black neighborhoods across America during the 1970s and 1980s. When the sun came up, you went outside, and you didn't come back until the streetlights flickered on. These weren't just ordinary summer days. They were adventures filled with imagination, community, and a freedom that today's children might never fully understand. From the moment breakfast was finished until that first amber glow appeared on the corner, black kids created entire worlds on sidewalks and alleyways and on front porches. The day didn't belong to schedules or structured activities. It belonged to the kids who made magic out of jump ropes, chalk, and endless creativity. But what exactly filled those long, unsupervised hours? Here are 25 things black kids did from sunrise to streetlight that defined a generation. 1. Waking up to Mahalia Jackson or the Staple Singers. The day began not with an alarm clock, but with gospel music floating through the house. Mothers and grandmothers would play Mahalia Jackson, the Staple Singers, or the local gospel radio station while preparing breakfast. The music wasn't just background noise, it was the spiritual foundation of the day, filling the home with purpose and peace before kids even opened their eyes. These morning soundtracks created a rhythm for black households that was both sacred and routine. Children learned the words to "Take my hand, precious Lord," and "I'll take you there," before they could spell their own names. The music signaled that it was time to rise, wash up, and get ready for whatever the day would bring. It was not just about waking up. It was about starting the day grounded in faith and family tradition. For many black kids, this morning ritual meant the house was never silent, never empty of soul. The melodies followed them as they brushed their teeth, got dressed, and sat down for grits or oatmeal. Even decades later, hearing those songs would transport them back to summer mornings when the whole day stretched ahead like an open promise. 2. Getting fixed up before going outside. No black child left the house without being fixed up first. This meant hair brushed and styled, face washed, clothes clean and pressed, and Vaseline applied to ashy knees and elbows. Mothers and grandmothers took pride in their children's appearance, knowing that how a child looked reflected on the entire family. Even for a day of playing outside, there were standards to maintain. The ritual of getting ready was an act of love and dignity. Hair was combed into neat plaits or puffs, secured with colorful barrettes and rubber bands. Boys had their hair brushed into smooth waves or neat afros. Girls might have ribbons tied at the ends of their braids. And everyone received a generous application of blue magic hair grease or royal crown that left them shining and smelling like coconut or bergamot. This daily preparation taught black children that they were always representing something bigger than themselves. It was not just about looking presentable. It was about pride, respect, and the understanding that even in casual play, you carried your family's name and your community standard with you. The message was clear. You are loved. You are valued, and you will show the world you know it. 3. Eating a bowl of cereal while watching Saturday morning cartoons. Saturday mornings meant cereal and cartoons, a sacred combination that brought black kids together in living rooms across the nation. Captain Crunch, Fruity Pebbles, or Frosted Flakes filled bowls while the Jackson 5, Eve, Fat Albert, and the Cosby Kids, and Scooby-Doo played on the television. These were the rare moments of stillness before the day's adventures began. What made this ritual special for black kids was seeing themselves reflected on screen. Fat Albert, created by Bill Cosby, featured a cast of black characters navigating childhood with humor and heart. The show addressed real issues facing black communities while celebrating the joy and resilience of black youth. Watching these cartoons wasn't just entertainment. It was representation and validation. The cereal itself was a luxury in some households, reserved for weekends or special occasions. Kids savored every spoonful, knowing that once that bowl was empty and the cartoons ended, it was time to head outside. The combination of sugar-sweet cereal and animated adventures created a perfect start to days that would be remembered for a lifetime. It was not just breakfast and TV. It was the calm before the joyful storm of a day spent in community and play. 4. Playing double dutch on the sidewalk. Double dutch wasn't just a game. It was an art form, a test of skill, rhythm, and courage. Two turners held thick ropes swinging them in opposite directions while jumpers entered the spinning challenge. The sound of ropes slapping against concrete created a rhythm that drew kids from blocks away. Girls especially excelled at double dutch, turning sidewalks into performance stages where agility and creativity were celebrated. The game required perfect timing and coordination. Jumpers had to watch the ropes, feel the rhythm, and leap in at precisely the right moment. Once inside, they could perform tricks, crossovers, spins, even running through while the ropes never stopped. The turners chanted rhymes and songs that kept the beat, their voices blending with the rhythmic slap of rope against pavement. Spectators gathered, cheering and waiting for their turn, creating an audience that made every jump feel significant. For black girls, double dutch was more than play. It was a space where they controlled the rules, showcased their talents, and built confidence. The game taught patience, persistence, and the importance of teamwork. When someone finally mastered a difficult jump or invented a new trick, the whole group celebrated. It was not just rope jumping. It was a cultural expression that connected black girls to a tradition of strength, grace, and sisterhood that would carry them through life. 5. Running through fire hydrants on hot days. When summer heat became unbearable in black neighborhoods, fire hydrants transformed into community water parks. Someone, usually a father or older brother, would use a wrench to crack open the hydrant, sending powerful streams of water gushing into the street. Kids would run through the spray, shrieking with delight as cold water soaked them from head to toe. The entire block became a celebration of relief from the oppressive heat. These moments were about more than cooling off. Fire hydrant parties represented the creativity and resourcefulness of black communities who often lacked access to public pools due to segregation or economic barriers. Instead of accepting the heat, families created their own solution, turning a basic city resource into a source of joy. Neighbors sat on porches and stoops, watching children play, occasionally joining in to cool down themselves. The water rushing down the street carried with it laughter, community bonds, and memories that would last decades. Children learned to help each other, to share space, and to find happiness in simple pleasures. It was not just about getting wet, it was about resilience, togetherness, and the ability of black communities to create celebration even when resources were limited. Those fire hydrant days became legendary summers, etched in memory as times when the whole neighborhood felt like family. 6. Selling Kool-Aid and pickles on the corner. Entrepreneurship started early in black neighborhoods, often taking the form of makeshift stands selling ice-cold Kool-Aid and pickles. Kids would mix packets of grape, cherry, or tropical punch Kool-Aid with sugar and water, pouring the sweet drink into Dixie cups and selling them for 25 cents. Pickles, bought in bulk from corner stores, were sold individually, sometimes frozen for an extra treat on hot days. These small businesses taught valuable lessons about money, customer service, and community economics. Children learned to make change, negotiate prices, and understand profit margins before they even knew those terms. They discovered that success required more than just setting up a table. They needed the right location, competitive pricing, and friendly service. Some kids became local legends, known for having the coldest Kool-Aid or the best pickles on the block. The pickle and Kool-Aid stand was also a gathering place. Customers would stop to chat, kids would compare flavors, and neighbors would support young entrepreneurs with encouraging words and extra quarters. It was not just about making pocket money. It was about learning self-reliance, business sense, and the value of serving your community. These early ventures planted seeds that would grow into real business acumen, proving that black excellence began on corner stands long before it reached boardrooms. 7. Playing hopscotch with sidewalk chalk. Hopscotch squares drawn in colorful chalk transformed ordinary sidewalks into game boards where balance, precision, and friendly competition thrived. Kids would carefully draw numbered squares, find the perfect stone or bottle cap for tossing, and take turns hopping through the course on one foot. The simple game became an all-day affair, with players perfecting their technique and challenging each other to go faster or perform more complex patterns. The beauty of hopscotch lay in its accessibility. All you needed was chalk, a stone, and a patch of concrete. Black kids elevated the game with style, adding decorative elements to their squares, creating themed boards, or combining hopscotch with double Dutch rhymes. The sidewalk became canvas and playground simultaneously, with chalk drawings lasting until the next rain washed them away. These hopscotch sessions built more than physical coordination. They taught patience, fairness, and how to lose gracefully. When someone's stone landed outside the square or they stepped on a line, they accepted their turn was over and waited for another chance. The game fostered community as kids of different ages played together, older children teaching younger ones the rules and techniques. It was not just about hopping through squares. It was about creating temporary worlds on concrete, where every child could participate and everyone understood that the sidewalk belonged to all of them. 8. Getting the switch for discipline. Every black kid knew the ritual. If you misbehaved, you were sent outside to pick your own switch from a tree or bush. This was not a request. It was a command that struck fear into the hearts of children who knew what was coming. The walk to find the perfect thin, flexible branch was filled with dread, and woe to the child who returned with a switch that was too small or too thick. Parents would simply send them back out to try again. This form of discipline was rooted in generations of black parenting that emphasized respect, obedience, and consequences for actions. Parents believed that firm discipline kept children on the right path in a world that often treated black kids more harshly than their white counterparts. The switch was not about cruelty. It was about survival and teaching children that actions had serious consequences. Despite the fear it inspired, there was also an understanding embedded in this practice. Parents disciplined because they cared deeply about their children's futures. They lived in communities where one mistake could have severe consequences, and they used the tools they had to ensure their kids stayed safe and stayed out of trouble. It was not just punishment. It was protection, love expressed through strictness, and a commitment to raising children who would navigate a difficult world with wisdom and respect. Those switches left memories that were complicated, sometimes painful, but always understood as coming from a place of fierce, protective love. 9. Playing freeze tag until exhausted. Freeze tag turned entire blocks into massive playgrounds where speed, strategy, and endurance determined the champions. One kid was it and had to chase and tag others, freezing them in place until a teammate could unfreeze them with a touch. The game could last for hours, with kids running between parked cars, around trees, and across yards in an exhausting ballet of pursuit and escape. The genius of freeze tag was its simplicity and inclusiveness. Kids of all ages could play together, with younger children sometimes given head starts or safe zones. The game taught cooperation, as frozen players called out to teammates for rescue and strategy, as runners learned to work together to keep the game going. Physical fitness came naturally when exercise felt like pure joy rather than obligation. These marathon sessions of freeze tag built community bonds stronger than any organized sport could. Kids learned each other's strengths, who was fastest, who was most clever, who never gave up. They developed unspoken rules and variations unique to their neighborhood. Disputes were settled democratically, with the group deciding what was fair. It was not just a game of tag. It was a daily lesson in teamwork, fairness, and the sweet exhaustion that came from playing until your legs could barely carry you home when those streetlights finally came on. 10. Eating now and later, lemon heads, and Boston baked beans. The corner store was a treasure trove of penny candy that fueled long days of play. Now and later, lemon heads, Boston baked beans, and Mary Janes lined the counter in colorful displays that seemed magical to kids clutching quarters and dimes. These weren't just snacks, they were currency rewards and small luxuries that made ordinary days feel special. The candy lasted, stretched across hours of play, making every piece precious. Each candy had its personality and devotees. Now, and later required serious jaw work, the tough squares of artificial fruit flavor lasting exactly as their name promised. Lemon heads delivered an intense sour punch followed by sweetness, making kids pucker and laugh. Boston baked beans, peanuts coated in candy shell, provided protein along with sugar, though no child thought about nutrition while popping them by the handful. The ritual of going to the corner store was as important as the candy itself. Kids would pool their change, debate purchases, and sometimes negotiate with the store owner for extra pieces. Black-owned corner stores were community anchors where owners knew every child by name and often extended credit to families when money was tight. Buying candy, there was not just a transaction. It was participating in the neighborhood economy, supporting black businesses, and maintaining relationships that made the community strong. Those penny candies tasted sweeter because they came from people who cared about the kids buying them. 11. Playing jacks on the front porch. Jacks required nothing but a small rubber ball, metal jacks, and a smooth surface, usually the front porch or stoop. Players would scatter the jacks, bounce the ball, and try to pick up an increasing number of jacks before catching the ball on its way down. The game demanded hand-eye coordination, quick reflexes, and intense concentration. It was quieter than running games, perfect for hot afternoons when energy was low but the desire to play remained strong. For black girls especially, jacks was a meditative game that allowed conversation to flow between turns. Friends would sit together, talking about everything and nothing while their hands performed the rapid motions of the game. The rhythmic bounce of the ball against wood or concrete created a soundtrack for lazy summer afternoons, punctuated by groans of frustration when someone missed or cheers when they advanced to higher levels. The front porch setting made jacks more than just a game. Porches were community spaces where adults watched over children, where neighbors stopped to chat, where life unfolded in full view of the street. Playing jacks there meant being part of that community tapestry, visible and protected. It was not just about picking up metal pieces. It was about occupying space with grace, building friendships through gentle competition, and learning that sometimes the best moments came from sitting still together in the summer heat. 12. Getting called inside for lunch, Kool-Aid and sandwiches. Midday meant mothers or grandmothers would appear on porches and call children home for lunch. The meal was usually simple but filling. Bologna sandwiches with yellow mustard on white bread, maybe some chips, and always a glass of ice-cold Kool-Aid. Lunch wasn't fancy, but it was fuel for the afternoon's adventures, and more importantly, it was a check-in point where adults could make sure kids were safe and behaving. The lunch ritual had structure and expectations. Kids knew to come when called. Ignoring your mother's voice was unthinkable and would result in consequences far worse than missing playtime. They'd wash their hands, sit at the table or on the porch, eat quickly but respectfully, and ask to be excused before rushing back outside. These brief interludes taught table manners, respect for elders, and the importance of responding when your name was called. Kool-Aid at lunch was an institution in black households. The bright colors, cherry red, grape purple, orange, were as much a part of summer as sunshine. Made with generous amounts of sugar, the drink was sweet relief from the heat and a constant that tied together countless childhood meals. It was not just a sandwich and a drink. It was a moment of care, a pause in the day's freedom where family still held you close before releasing you back to the streets and your friends. 13. Riding bikes with no hands or doing tricks. Bicycles were freedom machines and black kids pushed them to their limits. Riding with no hands became a rite of passage, proof of mastery and fearlessness. Kids would practice for weeks, wobbling and falling, until finally achieving that perfect balance that let them cruise down the street with hands raised in triumph. The bicycle wasn't just transportation. It was status, adventure, and proof that you could conquer something difficult. Bike culture in black neighborhoods had its own style. Kids customized their rides with colorful streamers on handlebars, playing cards clothespin to spokes to create engine sounds, and banana seats when they could get them. Older kids performed wheelies, jumping curbs, and racing through alleys. Groups of children would ride together in packs, creating impromptu parades that announced their presence to the whole neighborhood. The bicycle represented independence within boundaries. Parents allowed kids to ride within certain blocks, creating invisible borders that children learned to respect. On those bikes, kids could explore their world, visit friends faster, and feel the thrill of speed and wind. When chains broke or tires went flat, fathers and older brothers became mechanics, teaching basic repairs that turned maintenance into bonding time. It was not just about riding a bike. It was about mobility, style, and the confidence that came from mastering a skill that expanded your world while keeping you connected to your community. 14. Playing marbles or jacks in the dirt. Marbles was serious business, played in dirt circles drawn with sticks or in dusty patches of unpaved ground. Kids would contribute their marbles to create a ring, then take turns shooting their best marble, the shooter, to knock others out of the circle. Winning meant taking home other kids' marbles, making every game a high-stakes competition where prized marbles could change hands. The best players were local legends, known for their accuracy and their collections of beautiful glass spheres. The game required skill, strategy, and nerve. Players learned physics without knowing it, calculating angles and force needed to make perfect shots. They developed signature techniques, thumb positions, and lucky shooters that they guarded carefully. Marble tournaments could attract spectators, with kids gathering around the circle to watch masters compete, learning techniques they'd practice later. Beyond the competition, marbles taught valuable lessons about winning and losing with grace. Sometimes you'd lose your favorite marble, a clear blue cat's eye, or a rare steely, and you had to accept it. No crying, no begging for it back. The rules were sacred, and honor meant respecting the outcome of the game. It was not just about glass spheres. It was about integrity, skill development, and understanding that sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But you always play fair and accept the results. 15. Jumping rope while chanting rhymes. Jump rope was accompanied by rhythmic chants that were part song, part poetry, part community memory. Miss Mary Mac, down in the valley, and Teddy Bear echoed through neighborhoods as girls and some boys jumped in perfect time to the verses. The chanters and turners worked together to maintain rhythm, while the jumper performed increasingly complex moves, creating a performance art that was both athletic and musical. These rope jumping rhymes carried history. Many had roots in African American oral traditions, passed down through generations with slight variations from region to region. They taught children rhythm, memory, and coordination while preserving cultural expressions. Some rhymes were playful nonsense. Others told stories or taught lessons. All of them connected kids to something bigger than themselves, a living tradition that stretched back through their mothers, grandmothers, and great-grandmothers. The social dynamics of jump rope were intricate. Taking turns required patience. Turners needed strong arms and steady rhythm. Jumpers had to trust that turners wouldn't speed up or slow down unfairly. When someone missed, they rotated out without complaint. The best jumpers earned respect and admiration, but there was always encouragement for those still learning. It was not just about jumping over rope. It was about community, tradition, and the power of children keeping culture alive through play that looked simple but carried generations of memory in every chant and jump. 16. Playing hide and seek until dark. Hide and seek transformed neighborhoods into mysterious landscapes where every bush, porch, and parked car became a potential hiding spot. One person counted to 50 while everyone else scattered to find the perfect concealment. The seeker's call of "ready or not, here I come" sent shivers of excitement through hidden kids trying to stay perfectly still and silent. The game stretched across yards and around corners, with the home base, usually a tree or porch, serving as the goal. What made hide and seek special in black neighborhoods was the trust and boundaries it required. Parents allowed children to hide in neighbors' yards because everyone knew everyone, and the community watched over all its kids. Hiding spots became legendary. The best bush on Mrs. Johnson's property, the gap between houses on the corner, the shadowy space under the porch at the abandoned house everyone was slightly afraid of, but too competitive to avoid. As evening approached and shadows lengthened, hide and seek took on an almost magical quality. The approaching darkness added excitement and slight danger. Kids pushed their boundaries, hiding farther and more cleverly, knowing the game would end when streetlights came on. Those final rounds, played in the gloaming, were the most intense and memorable. It was not just about hiding and seeking. It was about testing courage, trusting your community, and experiencing the thrill of adventure within the safe boundaries of a neighborhood that knew and protected its children. 17. Eating popsicles and ice cream from the truck. The musical chimes of the ice cream truck were like a call from paradise. Kids would drop whatever they were doing, sprint home to beg for money, and race back to catch the truck before it turned the corner. Those who succeeded faced the difficult choice: push-up, bomb, pop, Nutty Buddy, drumstick, or the always popular Choco Taco. Eating the frozen treat was an exercise in speed and skill, as summer heat turned ice cream into sticky rivers running down arms. For Black families, the ice cream truck represented a small luxury and a test of parenting philosophy. Some parents had a rule: one treat per week. Others would share money among siblings with instructions to split something. The savvy truck drivers learned the neighborhoods, timing their routes to catch kids during peak play hours and knowing which blocks would bring the most business. Eating ice cream together on the curb was a moment of shared joy. Kids compared choices, traded bites, and worked together to catch drips before they hit the pavement. The treats were expensive by neighborhood standards, sometimes $1 or more, making them feel special and worth savoring. It was not just about ice cream. It was about the communal experience of summer pleasure, the democratic joy of a treat that made every kid feel wealthy for 15 minutes, and the simple happiness of cold sweetness melting on your tongue while sitting in the sun with friends who felt like family. 18. Playing red light, green light. Red light, green light required no equipment, just open space and at least 3 players. One person stood at the finish line facing away, while others lined up at the start. When the caller shouted green light, players rushed forward. At red light, they had to freeze immediately. Anyone caught moving when the caller turned around was sent back to the start. The first to reach and tag the caller won and became the next leader. The game was a study in self-control and observation. Players learned to move quickly but stop completely, fighting momentum and the urge to keep going. The caller developed timing and awareness, trying to catch others while maintaining fairness. Arguments erupted over whether someone had truly stopped or was still wobbling. Disputes settled by group consensus or the authority of the oldest kid present. What made red light, green light special in Black neighborhoods was how it mixed ages. A 6-year-old could compete against a 12-year-old because the game rewarded control as much as speed. Younger kids learned by watching older ones, understanding strategy, and developing physical mastery. The game taught patience, alertness, and the ability to switch instantly between movement and stillness. Skills that had metaphorical value in communities where reading situations and knowing when to move or be still could matter beyond play. It was not just a running game. It was practice in awareness, control, and navigating a world where timing could mean everything. 19. Getting your hair braided or pressed on the porch. Hair care happened in public spaces, especially on front porches where grandmothers, mothers, and aunties braided, pressed, and styled children's hair while neighbors passed by and conversation flowed. For girls, Saturday might mean hours sitting between someone's knees while patient hands sectioned, oiled, and braided hair into intricate patterns. For boys, getting a fresh haircut or wave cut from an uncle or father with clippers meant sitting still while the adults talked and worked. These grooming sessions were about far more than appearance. They were intergenerational bonding moments where family history was shared, advice was given, and cultural knowledge was passed down. The person doing the hair told stories, offered wisdom about life, and connected the child to family lineage. The rhythmic motions of braiding or the buzz of clippers created a meditative space where deep conversations happened naturally. The porch setting made these intimate moments part of community life. Neighbors would stop to compliment a new style, offer hair care advice, or share their own stories. The smell of hair grease, the sound of laughter, and the sight of black hair being lovingly tended became markers of neighborhood life. It was not just about looking good. It was about dignity, cultural pride, and the physical expression of love through touch and care. Those hours spent getting hair done were investments in self-esteem and cultural identity, teaching children that their natural hair was beautiful and worthy of time, attention, and artistic expression. 20. Playing spades or dominoes on the card table. While primarily an adult activity, black kids often watched intently as older family members played spades or dominoes on folding card tables set up on porches or in driveways. The games were intense, filled with strategy, trash talk, and dramatic slams of dominoes or cards that echoed through the neighborhood. Kids learned by observation, absorbing rules, strategies, and the social dynamics that made these games about far more than winning. The trash talk during these games was an art form, creative, cutting, and hilarious. Players developed reputations as reliable partners or risky chances. Winning teams celebrated with exaggerated victory dances. Losing teams vowed revenge and demanded immediate rematches. The games could last hours, with spectators coming and going, offering commentary and predictions. For children watching, these games were education in multiple subjects. They learned mathematics through scoring, strategy through watching masters play, and social interaction through witnessing how adults competed fiercely but remained friends afterward. Eventually, kids would be allowed to play, marking a rite of passage into more adult social spaces. It was not just about cards and dominoes. It was about community gathering, mental sharpness, and the passing down of cultural traditions that turned simple games into social institutions, binding black communities together through competition, laughter, and shared history. 21. Catching fireflies in jars as dusk approached. As evening approached and the sky turned purple-blue, fireflies emerged like magic, blinking their yellow-green lights in yards and along tree lines. Kids armed with glass jars, usually old mayonnaise or pickle jars with holes punched in the lids, would chase these living lights, carefully catching them and creating temporary lanterns. The excitement of spotting a firefly's glow, stalking it silently, and cupping it gently into the jar was pure wonder. Firefly catching was a quiet activity compared to the day's more active games. It required patience, soft movements, and observation skills. Children learned to watch for patterns in the blinking, to move slowly so as not to scare the insects away, and to be gentle so as not to harm these delicate creatures. The accumulated fireflies in a jar created a magical glow, a trophy of the evening's hunt that kids proudly displayed. The ritual came with an important lesson taught by parents and grandparents. Before bed, you had to let the fireflies go. Keeping them meant they would die, and that was understood as cruel and wasteful. Releasing them at the end of the evening taught respect for nature and the understanding that some beauty was meant to be temporary and free. It was not just about catching bugs. It was about wonder, patience, respect for living things, and accepting that some magical moments were meant to be experienced and released, not captured and kept. 22. Playing That's My Car. While sitting on the stoop, as kids tired for the day's activities, they'd often end up sitting on stoops or porches playing That's My Car, claiming ownership of passing vehicles. The rules were simple. Spot a car you liked, call it first, and it was yours. Disagreements arose over who called it first, or whether certain exceptional cars could be claimed. The game required no energy, perfect for exhausted children still too wired to go inside. This game revealed children's dreams and preferences. Some wanted the sleek Cadillacs that cruised by like boats. Others claimed the sporty cars that promised speed and adventure. The most coveted were the rare vehicles, a pristine Corvette, a customized lowrider, or a gleaming new model fresh from a dealership. These imaginary ownerships sparked conversations about what they do with their dream cars, where they drive, who they take with them. The game also reflected economic realities and aspirations. In neighborhoods where car ownership itself was sometimes a struggle, claiming luxury vehicles was a form of dreaming and goal setting. Kids learned makes and models, developing knowledge that showed paying attention to details mattered. It was not just about calling dibs on passing cars. It was about imagination, aspiration, and the freedom to dream big while sitting on a stoop in a neighborhood where those dreams might seem far away, but never impossible. 23. Playing kickball in the street. Kickball transformed streets into ballparks, with bases marked by jackets or chalk, manholes serving as home plate, and parked cars defining the foul lines. The game combined the best elements of baseball and soccer, requiring only a rubber playground ball and enough kids for two teams. Pitchers rolled the ball toward kickers who sent it flying down the street, while runners raced around bases and fielders scrambled to make outs. The game stopped for passing cars with everyone yelling "car" and scrambling to the sidewalk before resuming exactly where they'd left off. This interruption was accepted as natural, part of playing in streets that belonged to residents during the day. The best kickers earned reputations for powerful kicks that sent balls soaring into yards or over cars. The most athletic fielders made spectacular catches that drew cheers from both teams. Kickball was democracy in action. Teams were chosen through various methods, counting off, picking captains, or ensuring age balance. Disputes over safe or out calls were negotiated and settled by the players themselves. Younger kids were given handicaps like extra strikes. Everyone played until darkness made tracking the ball impossible. It was not just about kicking a ball, it was about self-governance, physical skills, and turning ordinary streets into fields of dreams, where neighborhood kids became athletes and every game felt important enough to argue about and remember forever. 24. Hearing time to come in. When streetlights came on. The appearance of the first streetlight was the universal signal that freedom was ending. Parents didn't need to call every child individually. The rule was known and absolute. When those lights flickered on, you came inside. Kids would track the sun's position anxiously, aware that their time was running out, trying to squeeze in one more game, one more race, one more moment before the inevitable glow appeared. The streetlight rule was practical and cultural. Before cell phones, it gave parents a reliable way to know when children should be home. It taught kids time awareness and the importance of respecting boundaries. The rule was enforced by the entire community. Any adult could remind a child playing past streetlight time that they needed to get home, and that child would listen because the authority of elders extended beyond their own parents. Those final moments before the streetlights came on held a bittersweet intensity. Games grew more frantic, laughter louder. Play more desperate as kids tried to hold onto the day's freedom. When the light finally appeared, there would be groans, final throws or kicks, reluctant goodbyes, and promises to do it all again tomorrow. The walk home was slow, feet dragging. Already mourning the day's end, while knowing that morning would bring it all back again. It was not just about going inside. It was about the end of childhood's daily freedom, the boundary between wildness and domesticity, and the comforting rhythm of a world where even fun had structure and limits that kept children safe. 25. Going to bed tired, dirty, and happy. After a day that stretched from sunrise to streetlight, black kids went to bed in a state of exhausted contentment. They might have grass stains on their knees, dust in their hair, and skinned elbows from falls. But they also had hearts full of laughter and memories. Bath time was mandatory. Mothers wouldn't let truly dirty children into clean sheets. So kids scrubbed away the evidence of their adventures while reliving the day's highlights. Lying in bed, sometimes sharing rooms with siblings, kids would replay the day. Who won kickball? Who made that incredible catch? What did it feel like to finally ride with no hands? The physical exhaustion made sleep come quickly, but the moment before drifting off held a perfect satisfaction. The knowledge that they'd squeezed every moment of joy from the day, played until they couldn't play anymore, and lived life at full volume. This nightly ritual represented something profound about black childhood in that era. Despite economic challenges, despite racism, despite limited resources, black kids found joy, adventure, and community in simple things. They learned resilience, creativity, and the value of relationships through unstructured play. Those nights, falling asleep with sore muscles and full hearts, they were rich in the ways that truly mattered. It was not just about being tired and dirty. It was about living fully, being deeply connected to community, and knowing that tomorrow would bring another day of freedom between sunrise and streetlight, another day of being young, black, and blessed with the kind of childhood that money couldn't buy, but memory would keep forever.